All right, hello, welcome back, everyone. And there's been an eventful past couple days, as we all know. A lot of people are heated, and if you haven't noticed, we have a special guest. And no, it's not Marshall dressed in a nice suit and tie for this the connection issues. But we have Alex Funderburke of Forgotten Five and Inside Outside Army fame. And anything else you want to tell the good people, Alex?
I mean, I am rather upset that Army's not in a bowl, but I'm ready to talk about it. Thanks for having me on, and we're gonna have some fun today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest thing that America's upset about. Just the fact that a 9-2 team got left out of a bowl. Even though I'm quite fascinated with seeing 2-8 teams and 3-7 teams in bowls, but not over a 9-2 Army team, especially since I go there and have a couple of friends and company playing for the team. So, but first off, we're gonna talk about some like historical continuities that we noticed this year, because for Army this year, it seemed like the more things changed, the more they stayed the same. And starting off with that, we'll start off with the Army-Navy game. For those of you that have been tracking the rivalry for a long time, it only became a standalone game in 2009 after really just like being sort of like some loaded slates. Not really loaded, but just like it wasn't a standalone game. And I'm going to share my screen really quick and show this graph that I whipped up last night while watching a family Christmas movie. Um, and here we are. We got the graph of games in the day of Army-Navy. We started with 2001 because that was almost like 2020, an adverse circumstance with a lot of games being canceled due to 9/11, leading to a 27-game slate. And then the slate was kind of light for like the next 3-4 years until 2005 when we get to 10 games. Then it rose again to 15, peaking at 16 in 2007 and 13 at 2008. And then this year, you had a 31-game slate in 2020 with 10 games in the same time slot as Army. And it was kind of interesting. I mean, while still, let me figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Let me figure this out.
Omar, quick question on that graph.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what made you want to choose like this 2005 to 2008 timeline to show versus like, any of that 2008 to 2020 timeline?
Yeah, so looking at the slates, you had like less than 10 games per year. And I think 2005 was like a good starting point because that's when the ACC had their first title game. Now, they didn't compete with the ACC title game didn't compete with Army-Navy, but you see a common thread over the next 3 years after that, where the ACC title games pitted against Army-Navy in some way. And it's just really an interesting trend to note. But this year, the game was the most watched game on that day, on that Saturday. But I want to know, guys, do you guys think that hurt the rivalry any bit, even though it's going to go back to its standalone format the next year?
I think it did hurt it a little bit. I mean, not anything super crazy, but I think Army Navy is something that is so important that it needs to be that standalone game. And even in past years, it's not necessarily the only standalone game. It's the only FBS game going on. There's always the FCS playoffs, but that doesn't get nearly as many views as Army Navy would if it was just a standalone. And even though it was the leading viewer or the leading view getter of last be on, have all the and then go from there.
Hey, we lost you a little bit there, Alex. You like kind of backtrack from even though it was like the leading viewer receiver.
I got you. So even though it was the leading like view getter, I do think it is important for it to be just all by itself, have no competition, just be standalone, get all the views. Because I mean, those two teams deserve it for everything they do. Like they should be all to America, only thing going on. Let everyone watch that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's interesting, not in terms of necessarily if it needs to be the only game played, but in terms of like the publicity it got this year. I think, with COVID going on, I think there was an extra attention added due to the fact, Trump went to it and people were criticizing him since, they're like, oh, why do you need to be going to a football game right now? Kind of near around like election season, so it's an interesting point. I'd be curious to see like if we could somehow pull like publicity the game gets. I mean, obviously, it was the highest rated viewing or the highest viewed game on that day this year, as we've mentioned. But I'd be curious to know like how much of that was, due to this abnormal like COVID timeline, like maybe people wanted something that they were familiar with versus, the game, in this itself, like, I guess like accounting for those past variables is what I'm trying to say. But I'm gonna definitely agree with Alex in terms of the game and being played like it should be the standalone. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And sort of, it's kind of funny including the 2001 game in that graph originally, but sort of like the same circumstance where like America was like looking for like some normalcy with that 2001 game, even though that 2001 game was competing with at the same time at noon on ABC, or I think 1 o'clock actually. Undefeated Miami, probably the greatest college football team of all time, playing against Virginia Tech. People were still looking for normalcy with that one. This year, I mean, you had a heavy slate. You had 10 games going on at the same time. As I shuffled through my index cards, find it. You had the, UNC Miami, nationally relevant game with UNC's running backs going for like 544 yards, like just the two of them, generational performance. And you had Iowa playing the same time, ranked Iowa, as well as Coastal on ESPN Plus, and ranked Buffalo for the first time ever. But then again, like, you have that normalcy of Army Navy too. And like, people love these teams, like Alex says, just about, it being about America really. So I mean, frankly, I don't think it hurt the rivalry at all, but I think it was kind of like a flashback to like a not so fun period for the rivalry. Just like looking back, I mean, being a standalone game is cool, but I think if you were to tell like, some young Army fans, there was a time when Army Navy was at noon on CBS, competing with ACC and championship games leading to SEC title game, they wouldn't believe you. So I thought it was an interesting throwback.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a weird feeling because like just leading into that game, game day ended at noon, and then I just like did not care about the noon games or the 1 o'clock starts, which is weird because anyone who knows me knows I am watching football from noon until 3 a.m. on Saturdays. So for me not to care about anything going on up until Army Navy was really weird. But yeah, no, it was definitely a weird feeling.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, it was just strange to be honest with you. And then like coming back and seeing like more games, like coming back from the game. But I mean, with that point, I mean that wasn't the only continuity that we saw, like repeating history in terms of that. This year's Army team looked a lot like the eight teams of the '80s, and just pulling out like the resumes, like this year's team had 3 wins against FCS schools, and that's nothing against the players, nothing against anyone. It's a tough situation being an independent in the COVID environment. It's why Notre Dame joined the ACC. Comparing with the 1988 team that went to the Sun Bowl, played against Alabama and went I think 8-3, or yeah, 9-3 actually, I think, yeah, 9-3. Comparing with that team, like that '88 team played 4 Division I AA at the time FCS schools, and they had wins against 2-8 Northwestern, 5-6 Rutgers, and 5-6 Air Force, and 5-6 Vandy to round out that slate. And I mean, that wasn't a bad team at all. They played neck and neck with Bama that year in the Sun Bowl, but it's kind of similar with this year's teams, not just this year, with the 3 FCS teams in the past playing 2 FCS teams, especially in late November when the rest of the country's playing conference ball and significant games. You have Army playing VMI or Colgate, and the same thing for '84 when they had 4 non-major teams and they had wins. Not so much '84, I guess. They had wins against Duke and pretty good or a tie against Tennessee. And a win against 4-6-1 Navy. But '85 was kind of the ugliest one. I mean, they went to the Peach Bowl broadcast on CBS that year, but they started out 5-0 with 3 non-major wins, one against a 4-6-1 Western Michigan school, a 4-8 BC team, lost by 2 scores to a Notre Dame school to leave the top 25 that ended up going 5-6. 2 more wins over Colgate and Holy Cross, a win against a 2-7-2 Memphis school, and a loss against 4-7 Navy. And so you kind of see these similarities with these teams playing these type of schedules, these like lighter schedules made up with like not really the best in the group of 5, but like, formidable bowl teams. I mean, nothing like eye-catching. But it seems like Army's found this ceiling where they're a team that can sneak into the AP coaches poll late in November. And, that's about it. Maybe win a Lambert Trophy. They still give that out. I want to know, guys, is that a sustainable ceiling for Army, or should they be shooting for more, or can they shoot for more?
Can they shoot for more? Yeah, probably. It's very hard though. Being an independent, especially now that Army's had success, there's not going to be many big schools that want to play you because they don't want to risk losing to little old Army. But in talking to Mike Buddy, the Army athletic director, he does seem like someone who does want to be, playing the Oklahomas, the Michigans. He wants to have more of those games on the schedule. but it's really hard because one, you schedule so far out in advance, and two, the other schools have to want to play you too. It's not just like, hey, Alabama, we want you on our schedule. Cool, now you're there. Alabama has to agree to it too. So I definitely think Army should, and I think they are trying to schedule harder opponents, but I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah, I definitely would just building off that. It's such an interesting discussion. Like it's like, there's a reason, we're talking about last week, Coastal itching by Troy, right? There's a reason like these Power Five schools aren't going and playing Troy anymore. Like no one wants these trap games. Like Army, the style of play they have, it's like so unconventional compared to what these teams are facing. They could easily go in there, not knowing what to expect and, get upset. Like it's something that a lot of Power Five schools don't want to deal with. Like I think while Army, I think I think they should shoot for more. I think, it's just like Alex said, it's so tough to get those other teams to want to schedule you too. I think the solution there, maybe we have to like consider some kind of like conference realignment event. Maybe Army needs to consider not going independent. I mean, honestly, like it's interesting though. It's like, I think maybe Navy has seen some interesting success as a result of being in the American. It could be worth considering, honestly. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, so something I thought about in the wake of yesterday, which we'll get to later, the fallout of yesterday of Army not making a bowl. It's like, what if Army was able to link up with the MAC in the way that Notre Dame links up with the ACC and plays some sort of conference slate, maybe like 4 games a year, and maybe the MAC gets control of one of Army's conference games on like CBS Sports Network, gets the revenue from that, or they put it on primetime or something on like a Friday night. I know like a Friday night game would be cool for us cadets in some way because we get to leave the next day. But enough about that. I mean, like I've thought about that, but then again, like the Americans and sort of the Mountain West to less of a degree is like where you want to be as in the group of 5. And I mean, we've heard about the complications of Army Navy or Army and Navy both being in the same conference with the Army Navy game. The MAC is the next logical choice after that, but it's like, how beneficial is that if you're just tied into, the Camellia Bowl every single year, or, have access to those bowls as opposed to like the Independence Bowl, which, in a normal year, that's a good gig in bowl season. But, I think that's a question that we wrestle with as Army's gotten better, because the Conference USA years in the late 90s and the early 2000s weren't great. And, Army fans are scared of, joining a conference again for repeating those years.
It's definitely, Omar, that idea was actually really interesting, kind of doing a Notre Dame thing. That might be something that Army should look into, because they normally play like 2 or 3 MAC schools a year. So just say, you know what, 4 MAC schools a year, and, there's some deal worked out, and boom, Army has a tie-in. But I think the bigger thing here is we got to get rid of bowl tie-ins. Conferences should not be guaranteed bowls. Just let the bowls pick, and just have it so you have to pick 6-win teams, because that way you can't get a 2-win South Carolina making a bowl. I think that's where it starts, and then it makes it easier for Army to still be an independent. But I do think in conference realignment, it's going to get tricky, because if Army joins the conference, the Army Navy game might have to be pushed to before conference championship week, and if that happens, it won't be a standalone. And I think both schools want that game to be a standalone, just because of all the views it brings in. So it's a tricky situation, and I don't know if they want to move Army Navy, because I think more than anything, Army Navy is the biggest thing, and I think they would rather have Army Navy be a standalone than be guaranteed a bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree too with like bowl tie-ins, in some circumstances, or I mean, in most circumstances, but with the traditional bowls, yeah, with traditional bowls, just got an update on my phone about Army playing a bowl actually, but yeah, like with the traditional bowls, such as I'm trying to think, let's see,
Like you can keep the Rose Bowl, Big
yeah.
Ten, Pac-12, but like everything else, we got to do better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, say, I guess one bowl that could work out is like the Holiday Bowl. If you put the Mountain West in there, with its WAC heritage, the Holiday Bowl that is, that's one tie I'd be fine with. Like, draw on tradition with like those bowls. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, and on your point, Alex, about getting rid of bowl ties, like I like the model that the Group of Five has come up with most of the ESPN bowls. How it's kind of like a very open selection where you have a list of bowls and each conference is going to choose like a few bowls to place their teams in. Otherwise, every other bowl is free game. Yet, it's like the downside is ESPN's running bowl season for the most part. And, there's something wrong with that. A network, a TV conglomerate should not run bowl season. So I think that's just another flaw in the system as well.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
how
no,
do you?
go for it, Marshall.
Yeah, I guess what do you propose we do instead? Like, I see it's like, it obviously becomes tricky when it just becomes so driven by money in that sense. But at the same time, it's like, they do provide a bit of organization to it. They provide, the means for a lot of these bowls to be shown on, network TV, like which they may not be otherwise. Like some people, like it's like, we love some of these like strange matchups, but, a lot of people in America probably just aren't going to be that interested in, like a Mac CUSA, third place of each division matchup.
Yeah, no, for sure. I get that. And I do think there needs to be some organization to it. Like ESPN can own and operate all these bowl games, but don't say only Conference USA and the MAC can play in this one. If they want to do Conference USA and an SEC game, go for it. Or if they want to put Army against a MAC team or Army against a Big 12 team, go for it. I think we have to find a way to, outside of, like the Rose Bowl or, those bigger traditional bowls that have always been, two conferences or two conference champions. I think we got to figure out a way to do it differently. But it's definitely not something that can just like poof happen. There's a lot of work that's definitely gonna have to go into it, but I think it would be better for college football that way.
Yeah, and I do agree with that for sure. But I think it's interesting to say, like the stipulation you made, Alex, about 6-win teams going into the bowls. This is a tale as old as time. I mean, you just look back to the 1964 or 63 Sun Bowl, my mistake, on New Year's Eve, 63. You had a 4-7 SMU team making their way, and that bowl season only had as much as 8 bowls. As I'm looking at it, yeah, 8 bowls, and a 4-7 team still finds their way in. I mean, this is a tale as old as time. And that's just something that we have to like look at, just look at the, I guess the higher rungs of the sports leadership to really fix these issues. Because I mean, name brands aren't everything. You have like in the case of like Tennessee or South Carolina, really disinterested fan bases, putting themselves at risk of an embarrassing loss. I think UAB is a better team. No,
UAB is going to run through South Carolina.
Exactly.
I don't think that game will be close.
No, not at all. But yeah, like, I mean, it's like no one wins. I mean, except for like the teams that want to be there, which, in most cases this bowl season is a group of 5.
Yeah, no, and it's like you said, the fan bases are disinterested. And I can speak to that personally as, as I've seen on the Inside Outside Army Twitter account, like the last 24 hours, I've gotten droves of Tennessee and South Carolina fans saying, hey, like, I wish we could give you our bowl. Like, hey, I wish you guys could take our spot because we, one, don't deserve to be there, and 2, don't want to watch that game because we're going to get another bad game of football. So, like, these fan bases don't want to be there. That bowl game would probably make more money if they put Army in there. So just put Army in there. Like, but, because of tie-ins, they have to take an SEC team.
I think it's so funny, too, because this is totally just going to go back. People are going to see UAB run through them, and they're going to say, oh, that's the, the worst SEC team. But at the end of the day, it's like, Texas A&M, squeaks by Vanderbilt by 5, and they end up, at 5 in the poll, and people are still going to say the SEC is some great conference. And it's like, man, how can both exist at the same time, guys? But that's a little bit of a side topic.
It's so frustrating because, so for Cincinnati, for example, when they play Georgia, if Cincinnati loses to Georgia, it's, the SEC is the best, the group of 5 can't hang. But if Cincinnati beats Georgia, it's, Georgia wasn't interested. Like, Georgia didn't want to be there. They didn't want to play with Cincinnati. Like, okay, it happened to us at UCF when we beat Auburn. Like, it happens every time a group of 5 school beats an SEC school. If they win, it's, they just weren't interested. It's just this little old school.
I think you guys both know the SEC has never lost a bowl game.
SEC school wins.
Yeah.
That's right. They're undefeated when they aren't interested in a bowl game.
We all know that.
Oh, yeah. It's terrible. It's so annoying.
So segueing to our next topic, I mean, we've sort of touched on this a bit, but doing some historical research, last night, I discovered that the Liberty Bowl had a tie-in for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy winner, excuse me, and that led to Air Force going to 4 straight Liberty Bowls, and they got some signature wins, such as the 1990 Liberty Bowl, I believe, when they beat a 24th ranked Ohio State team, and that Air Force team was only 6-5 out of the WAC. So, one of the biggest bowl upsets of all time. But I figure it doesn't have to be a big bowl like that, but like, what's stopping ESPN from like setting aside a bowl like the Frisco Bowl, which has had teams from the MAC, the American Conference USA, and the Mountain West all appear in like the last 5 years, from setting aside, hey, like the champion of the Commander-in-Chief's trophy gets this bowl game. If they're bowl eligible, they can choose to decline if the bowl situation's better. Like if Navy gets to play, an ACC school in the military bowl, they can decline. We'll take the next best service academy team. If Air Force gets a shot at a Power 5 school, they can do the same, what's stopping a bowl on ESPN from doing that? Plus, I think like it would benefit this Commander-in-Chief's rivalry, just for like that added stake. Because, like, you don't have to tell, any of the players that, the bowl's at stake, because, there's no love lost between Air Force and Navy, between the 3 academies. But it just adds something for, the viewership, in terms like, Army, Navy, and whatnot. So want to know your thoughts, guys.
That would be awesome. I mean, if you're going to keep these tie-ins, that would be great because, one, it guarantees the winner of a bowl game, and 2, it adds something for the fans. Because I think there's a lot of casual Army fans or casual Air Force fans or casual Navy fans that only watch Army Navy or Army Air Force or Navy Air Force, right? They're only tuning in for those games. So it gives them a little extra incentive to root for their team. Obviously, the players don't need any more motivation, especially when it comes to like Army Air Force. Like that, Army Navy is more historic, but Army Air Force is far more heated. Those coaches don't like each other. Those players don't like each other. That is like a true rivalry game. But no, it adds more to it. Like if you say, let's just say they do the Liberty Bowl again. That's a big bowl game. And if you win the CIC and you're guaranteed that slot, that's huge. Players are going to want to go play in the Liberty Bowl. And I think if you're going to keep tie-ins, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's just hilarious. You have bowl games like, Military Bowl, Armed Forces Bowl, Independence Bowl, Liberty Bowl, all these bowls, seemingly themed towards, the armed forces, with absolutely no like tie-in to actual academies. Like you end up just screwing them in a year like this. And it's like, how can they continue to honestly like call themselves that, really, like given this scenario? But maybe that's just part of a bigger question of like, not necessarily like pandering, but like what, like virtue signaling almost. I mean, it's like, we had that scandal in the NFL come out where they found out, the USO was paying, X amount of dollars to have, all of the military appreciation and such. And it's like, maybe if people were, more genuine almost and like less money grabby with these kinds of things, we wouldn't be having this issue to begin with.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it does all these bowl games, and I'll give credit to the Military Bowl. Their president, I think someone associated with the Military Bowl last night, went on Twitter and said, "We would love to host Army. If we can find an opponent, we'll do it." But then this morning it came out that they couldn't find anybody to play Army. But it does seem like they at least tried. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like all these bowls themed after armed forces, and no one can put 9-2 Army, and that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's interesting too. Like, it would have been cool if the Military Bowl would have signed on, because they have a history. I mean, of having Navy in, of course. I think Army had a tie into the Military Bowl in 2012. Back in those days. But a bowl I missed that actually did a lot for the academies, particularly Army and Navy, is the Poinsettia Bowl. And, a little revisionist history, we can blame the San Diego Chargers for the Poinsettia Bowl not existing, because they moved out and, they found out they're going to tear down Qualcomm. It's still Qualcomm in my heart. That's what it was most of my childhood. They're going to tear down Qualcomm. And so, one bowl had to go, and it's not going to be the Holiday Bowl with all its Power 5 splendor. It was the Poinsettia Bowl, but the Poinsettia Bowl nearly like every other year had a tie-in for like Navy and
with Navy. Yep.
Army. Yeah. And, we lost that. Something that I would think would be interesting is no one, loves the academies in terms of like a broadcasting perspective more than, CBS, because we have they house the Navy games despite Navy being in the American. They house the Army games since 2009. And, They have had the Army Navy game since '96, and before the new American TV deal, something we talked about over the summer. They had Navy Notre Dame in years that it was a Navy controlled game. So with the two bowls that CBS has, the very thin inventory, why not rotate in an academy into like the Arizona Bowl against, like, say, the Mountain West champion or the Mountain West runner-up, Mountain West Division champ, or possibly this might be reaching too high, like maybe even the Sun Bowl, because Army played in the '88 Sun Bowl. It's a while back, but CBS loves the academy, so maybe they can parlay that into a spot for Army.
Wait, Omar, did you see that Tennessee just opted out?
I did, yes, I did, but I'm kind of on egg now.
Yeah, no, my phone is blowing up right now. I just got 50 text messages in the span of 2 seconds. That's interesting. Army might be able to slide into there. We'll see. Who is Tennessee playing in that bowl game? Do you know?
They're playing West Virginia.
Okay, so that hey, has a chance at a Power 5 win. That'd be cool. But sorry, I lost track with what you were talking about because my phone just was blowing up. What were you saying?
Oh, no, it's all good. I was just saying that maybe CBS can parlay their two bowls and their sort of like their lineage with broadcasting academy football into like maybe a spot in the Arizona Bowl against like the, Mountain West runner-up in the title game, or a Power 5 school, even though this might be reaching in the Sun Bowl. So I just want to know your thoughts on this, guys.
That would be cool because, like you were saying, the CBS loves the service academies. So if they could guarantee a slot in either the Arizona or the Sun, and take the CIC champion, that'd be really cool. Because the Sun Bowl is one of the most historic bowls. It's in arguably the most beautiful stadium in the country. I got to make it out there. That stadium just looks awesome in El Paso. That would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Maybe if it goes to CBS, they could throw us a little CBS-SN crossover. Get our good friend Rich Waltz on the call.
I was just about to say that because Rich isn't so well versed in academy football. It's a darn shame. But yeah, no, like I feel the possibilities are there because you have like bowl matchups like the one I'm watching, or Alex and I are watching right now, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, where like the teams want to be there, but it's not as compelling like to the casual fan. But the name Army rings out because you have even then, I think the casual fan, like every now and then hears about, Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside. And if not that, the Army-Navy game. And if not that, Army-Notre Dame back in the day. And it's just like a lot more tradition. And if not, supporting the troops, both sides, in the words of Ryan Howard. It just brings more to the table for the casual college football fan.
Yeah, and I will say in terms of pure like viewership, we've discussed in length before, Omar, different like TV markets and what teams can gravitate eyeballs from each market. And it's like Army situated perfectly there in that like New York TV market, grab a lot of eyeballs there, maybe even from that, Philadelphia market, just in general, and then across America, obviously, people love the armed forces, but there's really no reason why people wouldn't want, like CBS especially wouldn't want them, like that. They truly are like a great brand to have. But I guess that's beating a dead horse at this point. So
yeah, no, it's tough because it's like, yes, Army football might not be a big national brand like an SEC school, but if you put Army in a bowl game as compared to South Carolina, I promise you, Army is getting more views than South Carolina. Army is bringing more people to the stadium than South Carolina. Like when Army was in the Armed Forces Bowl against Houston 2 years ago, I was there in Dallas and I expected more Houston fans to be there. But Army outnumbered the Houston fans like 4-1. It felt like a home game in Mikey Stadium. Like Army is such a brand, not necessarily the football team, but just the U.S. Army, that when Army shows up, veterans that never went to West Point, have no affiliation to West Point, they come to root for Army. So if you put Army in a bowl game, they're going to sell their tickets out. They're going to get a ton of viewership on TV. And people have to overlook the fact that Army football in and of itself might not be a huge brand, but the U.S. Army is huge.
Yeah, I agree. And like, something from this year, something that like made me quite restless, in terms of that brand, Alex, is like people love the cadets too. Like that aren't playing, but just in the stands in uniform. They just love the discipline. They love the look of the uniform. So there's that, they just like horse and pony show. So, but I digress. I will say this is the last point on our bowl. One team I'm surprised that did not want a bowl bid, and I'm sure Marshall's gonna roll his eyes when I say this, but like, why wouldn't UMass have accepted a bowl? I mean, they only played 4 games. They have never appeared in a bowl, at least since moving up to FBS. Their lone bowl appearances are the Tangerine Bowl, now the Citrus Bowl, aka the little bowl that could, due to its the slot it gave to smaller schools, and the 1972 Boardwalk Bowl, which is in essence an FCS semifinal. Excuse me. So they haven't appeared in a bowl game since '72. Like, I mean, like, why couldn't they make the trip to Annapolis, the easy trip to Annapolis to play Army in the Military Bowl? I mean, that would be big for like kind of like revitalizing for the UMass, fan base, even if like they do get steamrolled by Army. Like that, it's to say that, we're in a bowl. We did something that USC didn't, like, I know it might seem like ridiculous, but I mean, I was really pushing for UMass to accept a bowl bid.
Fam, I would love to see UMass in a bowl. They'll get steamrolled, but like I just want to see UMass in a bowl. I have, I don't know why, but I have a deep love for bad college football teams. Like I love UTEP, I love UMass. Like just put them all in a bowl. If we're putting 2 in South Carolina in a bowl, give me 0-4 UMass that scored what, like 14 points all season. Like put UMass in a bowl.
Yeah, and in all reality, this could be the real tipping point in our campaign for George Dropoulos for the Ray Guy Award winner. And they're getting steamrolled by whatever, any team, I guess, that they end up playing. This gives our boy George Georgopoulos, the man so nicely named him twice, the chance to drop some more bombs in the end zone, I mean, like, really, this is the opportunity to shine. He just needs those eyeballs, and really that Ray Guy Award is all but his.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, like, yeah, like even if it's against Army, you have a nice regional rivalry, nice, for the Boston TV market, because Boston College isn't playing any bowl. So who's the next team you got? You got UMass, who, sheltered themselves in a Gillette Stadium for so many years, in front of 10,000 fan crowds in that huge stadium. They do have some Boston following. Then you have the New York TV market you said earlier, Marshall. Why not? Why couldn't we have made that happen? But oh well, we can only say what if now.
And I gotta say, man, am I disappointed that ASU is not going to take up that bowl game and go play Army down there, man. I think Herm Edwards is doing those boys a disservice right now, not giving them the bowl game, man. Avenge that loss to USC, really.
Hey, I would love to see. I'd love to see Jaden Daniels go up against Army's defense. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be exhilarating.
Yeah, the world will never know, and we already are 1-0 against quarterbacks named Daniels. So I mean, we'd probably go undefeated, Marshall.
Well, Omar, I mean, I guess we'll just have differing opinions on that. Let me go pull up. What's that website? My team is better than your team. Let me go tell you how Arizona State is better than Army real quick, huh?
That's literally impossible this year because like there's almost no non-conference games. That was like the great equalizer in the transitive property. But yeah. I'm sure I.
You know what? I'm pulling it up right now. We are going to test your theory, huh?
All right. Well, while Marshall pulls that up, do we have any final thoughts, guys? I thought this was great. Any final thoughts on Army or anything, the bowl season?
Let Army play West Virginia. My phone is still blowing up about it. Put Army in, what are they in, the Liberty Bowl? Right?
Yeah, they're in the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, put Army in the Liberty Bowl. Let's make it happen. The football team's there until Thursday morning. I'm sure Mike Buddy is on the phone right now with the Liberty Bowl saying, yo, West Virginia, stay put. Like, we're coming. Make it happen. That'd be a lot of fun. Give Army a shot to get to 10 wins. And, like, I love Neil Brown. When he was at Troy, I loved him there. So it'd be cool to see Army go up against West Virginia.
All right, Omar, are you ready for this? Here we go. ASU beat Oregon State. Oregon State beat Oregon. Oregon beat USC. USC beat Utah. Utah beat Colorado. Colorado beat San Diego State. San Diego State lost to BYU by less than Navy lost to BYU. Navy beat Tulane, and Tulane beat Army. So there you have it.
It's
Okay.
not even as long as I thought it was going to be. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like about 5 of those tiers could get knocked out if ASU, if they had only played 58-minute games instead of 60-minute games. But I digress.
Yeah, who knows? We would have had like I guess at that point like a 4-0 Arizona State team playing.
No, like it would be interesting. Like it would be like an interesting conversation, given how Ohio State has been given a lot of leeway in this playoff. It would be interesting if ASU is 4-0, but we'll never know. We'll just have to wait until next year, huh?
I guess we will, and the rest of the viewers will have to wait till I guess next week or so. I mean, with this holiday schedule to catch our next podcast. So until then, peace, love, and soul, everyone. Bye.